Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Fade to Black. Today is Thursday, April 27th, 2023. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. And tonight, Steve Bassett joins us of PRG. And we are going to break down what is really going on in Washington and the push for disclosure. We're going to hit it from all angles tonight. Steve founded PRG back in 1996, and I want to remind everybody that in 2013, PRG organized the citizen hearing on disclosure, and it is now the 10-year anniversary for that. You can reach out to Steve and catch up on everything PRG at paradigmresearchgroup.org. The links are below. Without jumping into the longest bio and CV of anybody that I know personally, I'm just going to go, welcome, Steve Bassett. How you doing, my friend? Everything good?
Jimmy, good to be with you.
It's always great to see you, my friend. And crazy times we find ourselves in on this long road to disclosure. And you've always got, this is the thing, Steve. You always ground me. You center me. You have that effect on me and everybody else. So mission achieved there. But things are starting to heat up in Washington, and we just came off of another hearing. I've got to go straight to your thoughts. What's your takeaways from last week?
Oh, goodness. There is more has happened in the last 3 years with respect to government activity and so forth than in the previous 73. It's a fire hose. I can't keep up with it. Now, those that are not paying attention, they hear this, they hear that, and they go, well, yeah, this is the same old thing, the odd drip, drip. No. If you're following on a daily basis, it is simply extraordinary. So we recently had the second quote hearing. It was really a briefing. The first one back in May of last year was it this year? No, it was last year. With Moultrie and Bray. That wasn't a hearing either. That was a briefing. They did not take an oath. They came in to brief that particular committee about how the project was doing over at the Pentagon. They didn't have nothing much had been set up yet. There was only so much they could really say. They were immediately asked questions. There's no way they could answer, but they sort of knew that was going to happen. People were upset. I'm going, no, that's exactly what you do. You call some people in to brief. Well, now some time has gone by. Legislation has been passed. And so now, in this case, we had another briefing. Only this was a step above the one in May of last year. This was a Senate committee. In fact, it was a Senate subcommittee, a Senate Armed Services subcommittee on emerging threats and capabilities, which happened to be chaired by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who ran for president. And if Joe Biden were to decide not to run or something changes there, she'll run again. And she chairs that committee. And she asked the head of AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is now the interagency group across all of the agencies that has been set up to deal with this issue, to come in and be briefed. And he came in, didn't take an oath, sat down, answered some basic question about what was going on, some references to the legislation, some requests in the legislation, and what have you. And he is a very, very competent man. He has an exceptional background. If you were to go online, read his biography, you realize this is no amateur. This man knows his way around the Pentagon. He knows science. He is perhaps the perfect individual to head AARO. And he's getting his footing. This program is expanding. And he gave reasonable answers to, as it were, 3 members of the committee. Not all the members were there because this was not a hearing. It was a briefing. The ranking member, the chairman, Gillibrand, and another senator whose name escapes me. I kind of couldn't help but note that all 3 were women.
Yeah, you caught that. Yeah, so did I. Very
yeah,
interesting. Very interesting, I might add. Not that gender has anything to do with it, but it was three women senators, and I thought that they were pretty strong and pretty effective, by the way.
well, all the women senators are pretty effective. But here's my takeaway, and this is purely my opinion. The military intelligence complex, the secret empire, as you want, if some may call it, our national security structures, our military structures, and so forth, is almost a completely male-dominated enterprise from the get-go. And as you go back in time, it becomes 100% practically male-dominated. Why is this important? Well, as in the collective, I don't think this shocks anybody. Women have a different worldview from men.
And they're also smarter. So
well, there's that too. Yes. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, let's get that part.
And while on an individual basis, you can't necessarily say that, but in the collective, they have a different worldview with men from men. It is a worldview that doesn't really embrace the kinds of things we have seen since 1947 rather. And the structures have been set up, the massive secrecy, the endless wars. They're not quite on that page. And so it is going to probably be the case that as we go further, more and more women are going to step forward on this because this issue has the potential to transform our military, national security, and other policies and programs in profound ways. And I think they want to put their stamp on it. And so this was a way of making that statement. I don't know if the men were told not to show up,
right?
But there were three women interviewing Dr. Kirkpatrick.
Let's get into let's go deep here. My first takeaway that I was surprised about was Kirkpatrick himself. For him to come off of the article that he wrote with Avi Loeb about alien motherships dropping off probes in our solar system, right? Mm-hmm. So that comes out 3 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago. And so hot on the heels of that, he comes into this hearing and out of the gate says, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, out of all the evidence, it ain't ET. And it was like, it was a different person than who was in the byline of that article, right? And Gillibrand didn't mention that, and obviously by intention. But it's like two versions of Sean Kirkpatrick. Which one is the real one?
You're feeling a little cognizant dissonance, are you, Jimmy?
No, I have the openness of the open. I want my mind changed.
Okay.
I'm just saying that stuck out. That was glaring to me.
Well, you know my position on this. I've given it now in probably 100 interviews in the last year, including your show. Mm-hmm. In fact, I put it as clear as I possibly could into an op-ed, which was, interestingly enough, recently published in the Roswell Daily Record. I tried to get it in the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Hill, but they didn't see it was useful. The Roswell Daily Record did, and that's perfect. It could not have been published in a better, more appropriate paper. And in this op-ed, I make the case that I've made to you. What's going on is not the United States government suddenly learning not too long ago because of a New York Times article that there was a phenomena up there that really wasn't explained, and they probably maybe should do something about it. I'm not sure what, but let's talk. Let's do something. And let's talk to some people, maybe do some legislation, set up a group in the Pentagon, and so forth. No, that is not what's going on, not by a long shot. The U.S. government has known about the ET presence since 1947, if not a little sooner, but absolutely since 1947, when they made a slight boo-boo and sent out a press release saying, we have a saucer, all right, which was kind of a problem. And they moved very quickly to quell that, think about what they were going to do, ride the train for a while. And then when the big event occurred in 1952, they got serious and they solidified the truth embargo. They have known all along. They have been researching ET craft obtained through retrievals all along. They have been tracking them in the skies all along. They had a live ET in 47. I'm sure they tried to interrogate it. I don't know how that went. All along. So what is going on now? What is going on now is, how do you get from there's nothing there for 75 years to, oh, there's something there, and then tell the people, right? How do you do that? You just don't casually mention in a press release put on a Friday afternoon that, oh, by the way, this phenomenon is extraterrestrial, non-human intelligence. See you Monday. This is a hugely complex, hugely implicative thing that has to be then finally confirmed to the world's people. It will be confirmed to the world's people, and it probably will start with the United States. And to do this, you need to go about it in an appropriate way, to do it properly, to involve the right entities, to be responsible and transparent, so that you can create a situation where the president can come forward and confirm what every president has known to one degree or another since 47. There's non-human technology in our skies, probably from another planet. Now, but this creates a huge problem. I mean, you can't talk and act like you already know. There's a limit to what you can say. You've got to give briefings, and you've got to answer journalist questions and so forth. In other words, it's like one of those bowling alleys for the kids where they put the bumpers in the gutter so their balls can't go in the gutter because that ball cannot go in the gutter. So the kid can just roll it down and always get a couple of pins. They have to stay between the lines. And this requires saying and doing things which a lot of people who know you well are scratching their head and going, I don't get it. I don't get it. 2 examples. There's nothing wrong with Kirkpatrick writing an article about motherships, speculating about motherships with Avi Loeb. All right. Does that mean that he is confirming an ET presence? No. What he's doing is he's pairing up with the head of the astronomy department of Harvard. That's the same university that tried to cashier John Mack in 1993, okay, and show a little, faith with him and garner some of that prestige. In other words, Harvard, AARO working together. Now they can't come together and write an article about crash retrievals. I can assure you that, but they can speculate about probes and motherships, which he did. And that serves the process, right? He's connecting with the academic community. And then he makes that statement in the hearing, we have not found yet, or do not have confirmation of extraterrestrial technology. Now, what does that mean? The entire government doesn't have that? No. It simply means that as of now, AARO, which is only about a year old, does not have yet, under its umbrella, stuff that confirms the ET presence. That does not mean it won't have it a week from now, okay? And even if it did have that, even if it did, and it's interviewed now a bunch of people, I'm going to talk about that in a while. It's interviewed a number of people that are direct witnesses to this issue, crash retrievals, nuclear weapons turnoffs, pilots, and so forth. And so in a sense, it does have evidence like that, but he can't say it. And again, wait a minute, we know you interviewed him. Why don't you say it? Because that gets ahead of the skis. His job is to set up this cross agency, do the right things, interview people, and set the stage for the members of the Intel and Armed Services Committee to learn this information from the witnesses under oath. He is not the one that's supposed to tell us that. And throughout all of this process, everybody involved, whether it's Elizondo or Mellon or Patrick or Bray or Moultrie, all of them, they're under a range of protocols that they have to stay in, because the goal is not telling us there's an ET presence. The goal is setting the stage for the president to tell us. And that is why you get these odd situations where you're scratching your head. But once you see it, it's nothing more than a disclosure process, not a discovery process and a political process. Then it starts to make sense.
I understand that he stayed in the boundaries of truth, right? He stayed in his lane
as best he could.
But I don't think he was telling the truth. And in saying that, because he dismissed it as that wasn't AARO's mission. Okay, and he had said that it was AARO's mission to make UAPs somebody else's problem. And he said that like three or four times in the hearing.
Yes, he did.
We're setting this up to hand this off to somebody else and make it a genuine SEP, somebody else's problem.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what he could have said, if he would have spoken the truth, certainly based on the article, is something as simple as this: no ET information yet, but we would love to find out. And it only takes one case. And if we can do it and work with our partners to see if something is coming from out there and it's not of this earth, that would be the greatest discovery of all. But right now, we don't have that. That would be more truthful than his original statement. And I think that's everybody was expecting AARO to be a UFO UAP task force. And he's saying they're not, that they're looking at 1 to 4 meter objects. We're looking at this altitude, and that's our goal. And then to make this stuff somebody else's problem. I was just confused. It seemed like two different Kirkpatricks to me.
Well, first of all, I don't recall him saying they're just looking at certain things. They talked about some of the things they're doing, such as recalibrating certain sensors and that. They're going to be reviewing lots and lots of UAP cases and reports and witnesses across the board. But this SEP is very important. He meant exactly what he said, right? Here is what someone else's problem means. AARO's job is to collect information, to set up the ability of people to make reports, to organize the engagement of the issue in the public-facing sector, to show the flag, to do the right thing. It is not AARO's job to confirm the extraterrestrial presence. It is AARO's job to set the stage for the Congress to take testimony from witnesses, which will help confirm to the Congress that there is validity to this, and to the president, so that he, in concert with his political leaders, congressional leaders rather, can finally confirm the issue. The people he is referring to with some other people's problem is the Congress's problem, the president's problem ultimately. That's what he's saying. And he said it in a way that I think is, obviously people could kind of misconstrue it. I get it. But he can't say what I just said. It gets a little too granular.
Okay, but you just said something very interesting. And I'm not trying to, Steve, at all position ourselves in an adversarial way. But you just said something very interesting, which is validity. Validity of what? Validity of objects in the sky, we know that's happening, or the validity of something that is not human, something that comes from out there that is not of this earth. The validity of what? What is AARO's position?
AARO's not going to have a position. AARO's job is to do what I just said. The decision about confirming what is valid will come from the Congress. And the reason for that, as I've said this many times on your show and other shows, the issue, what we're dealing with now is not science. We haven't been dealing with science for 75 years. There's been a lot of science done. It's been dismissed. And the big scientists won't touch it, and the universities won't deal with it because it's embargoed. Right. It hasn't been a science problem. It's been a political problem from the get-go. It is a political policy of the United States to embargo and deny the extraterrestrial presence. And ending that political decision is what is going on. As far as the validity, hey, there's only one place this goes, and that's the validity of a non-human intelligence presence engaging us. Non-human intelligence piloted or controlled technology in our world, undersea, in the sky. Where they come from, hey, I believe they come from other planets. They have told contactees they come from other planets. They've told people in ancient times they came from other planets. So, hey, you know, I like wormholes and time travel and interdimensions as well as anybody. It's other planets. That is where this must go.
Well, okay.
Confirm that validity. That's what this is about.
Let's stay right there. What is it that AARO's going to hand off? The stuff that they can't figure out?
No, again, all right. Okay, this is an interagency committee serving the United States Congress under the NDA legislation of 2022-2023. This happens all the time, okay? In other words, they didn't set this program up on their own. They were told to set it up by the Congress. They are serving the Congress for various reasons, and they are very political. And so if you're going to hold hearings, credibly well-watched hearings of extraordinary nature with military witnesses, you need an entity set up within the intelligence and military intelligence community that can interview those witnesses, talk to them, research, as well as address the broad organization of the issue, fine-tune it, do whatever it needs to do to make the Congress committee's job easier. And that's exactly what they're doing, right?
Isn't resolution in their name? So therefore, by just definition alone, the Airborne Anomaly Resolution Office, you're coming to conclusions. And if they're not pursuing that, what is it that it almost goes back to Steve. I think this really needs to be explored. Ernst asked one, well, she said it a few times, but one very important question. She said, are you redundant? What's the purpose here? Aren't there other agencies doing exactly what you're doing? Why do we need AARO? So which takes me back to my point. Are they? Is their mission to figure out if ET is visiting this planet or not?
No,
and that's so you're saying no. So what does resolution mean then? What do they?
Well, they had to call it something, and it is. Remember, from the standpoint of the Congress and the Department of Defense,
right?
It's kind of a pretend thing, right? Meaning, we are going to set up what we should have done in 1948, right? We should have acknowledged that press release was valid. We should have taken some time to think about it. And then if we had come forward in 1948 and confirmed that that crash vehicle was not human and from somewhere else.
Right.
We chose not to do that. Fine. We had another opportunity in 53 after the huge sightings in Washington in July 52, which really got everybody's attention. But again, a different time, less television, less internet, less everything, right? It was a lot easier to sort of, let's just move on. They didn't do it. They chose not to. And then the Cold War heats up and goes on for decades and decades. The next chance to do what the right thing was 93. After the Cold War is technically over, things are looking better. The Communist Party was outlawed, on Christmas Day of 91. They're all going capitalist, which means the early stage of capitalism where you have all these oligarchs and robber barons or whatever. Anyway, we won, right? And then a new president comes in. Rockefeller knows it's time. He goes to the White House, says, look, I want to help, get the files out. I'll support this. I'll fund, a program, project, whatever the hell came to be known as the Rockefeller Initiative. But the military intelligence community wasn't ready yet. And so they stonewalled the president, basically told him to go pound sand. And we didn't do it then. That was 30 years ago. A lot has happened in the last 30 years. And I can tell you, so much has happened in the last 30 years that this time, the fourth time, they are going to get it done. Now, again, they have to call the office something. So they call it the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which has many advantages. It doesn't have UFO, doesn't have UAP, doesn't have alien, doesn't have extraterrestrial. It's kind of cool. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's got a great acronym, AARO. That works for me.
It does. Like works for me too. Okay. What was the last one?
Yeah. It was like STPWJYX. I mean, it was like a Wordle. It was like a Wordle answer. So they call it the Resolution Office. Well, guess what? Its job is to service the resolution of this issue. That doesn't mean its job is to hold a press conference one day and say, AARO is here to tell you today that, in fact, there is an extraterrestrial presence. And I, Sean Kirkpatrick, am now confirming to the world that that is the case.
Right.
Not going to happen. Their job is to help the resolution process, and they are doing that in appropriate ways. But the ultimate resolution can only come from one person, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the entire U.S. military and intelligence services, who can classify and declassify anything he wants, right? Though he does, have other people do that for him. The president is the only person that can do this. Now, the Congress needs to play a role. The president could circumvent the Congress. The president, and I think Clinton was kind of doing that in a way, which made it unlikely it could possibly succeed. But he could go right around the Congress, go straight to his Secretary of Defense and say, look, we're getting this out. I'm going to have some, let's have some secret meetings in the cone of silence, and we're all going to talk about this. We're going to get the files together, and then I'm going public and confirm it, and just cut the Congress completely out of it. He could do that, or every president technically could have done that. Politically, it would be suicide.
Right.
You're not going to do it. All right.
Right.
So
right.
it is. Again, once you understand this is all about disclosure and not discovery, it is a political process designed to get things done in a way that's politically wise, appropriate, and minimizes, to the extent humanly possible, the enormous spectrum of public relations issues the government, the Air Force, the Navy, the CIA, DOD, you name it, is going to have once the cat's out of the bag. And they're going to have to sit down and answer endless questions from journalists and have many more hearings with far tougher questions, getting into even more difficult issues. You know some of them, Jimmy. You've covered them on your show. But first, let's do the right thing, and then people will be a little more understanding that, yeah, we knew in 1747, but we just felt it was against our interest to tell you.
If Kirkpatrick, okay, so they get the one, right? They've got the sensor data, they've got telemetry, they've got imaging, they've got video, still images, they've got a photograph of a gray ET waving out the window, doing this. Okay, they got the whole shebang. Aren't they the one to come to a resolution on this? Or is that now an SEP? And if that is an SEP, who do they hand that off to? I thought that they were the agency or the organization to deal with it.
This is a good time for me to bring up that yesterday.
But answer the question, though. Who do they hand it off to, Steve?
No, they're going to hand it off to the Congress. In other words, whatever comes in their door.
Right.
And it could be extraordinary stuff. Somebody shows up with, 2 hours of footage of a landing craft at Malmstrom Air Force, not Malmstrom Air Force Base, whatever is that Air Force Base, whatever. Anything extraordinary.
Holloman. You meant to say Holloman. Yeah,
Holloman Air Force Base. Immediately, that's brought in under AARO. Immediately, it is classified, right? Or if it's classified, it stays classified. And then they will provide that to the appropriate congressional committees, who are also have the security clearance and can maintain classification for them to consider as they move towards having hearings, right? In other words, the other person's problem is the Congress's problem next. That is who's going to deal with it. So they're interviewing the witnesses, and as in this article that I'm going to talk about in a minute, there's been indications they've interviewed at least 12, maybe more, who are going to be the witnesses at those hearings. They are not going to then come forward and tell you what they have gotten from these witnesses. They're going to interview them in advance, and then congressional staffers, say Intel committee staffers, will also interview them, so that everyone knows what their basic testimony is, and deals with any concerns that they may have about that. And I don't think they're going to censor, right? And so they know the right questions to ask in an intelligent way. This is the way you go about doing hearings correctly. You just don't have them show up and let's see what happens. And so they've already done those interviews. I believe the interviews are already taking place over at the staff level at the Congress, right? Again, leading to what? Congressional hearings. And so
we'll circle back to that, but I need to address some of your points here. Who does the first round of hearings with the witnesses? Is that a House thing or is that a Senate thing?
Interesting. You see, any committee in Congress, even the Agricultural Committee could theoretically demand a hearing on this and ask for some people to show up, right? Bring some witnesses in. But if the Agricultural Committee chair tried to do this, he or she would make a fool of himself. They're not going to do that.
Andre Carson would be okay.
Sure, but you have to understand. Yes, there is a lot of internal politics in the House and Senate. There are protocols and way things are done, and you don't step on other people's toes and you follow the rules, or people won't cooperate with you. It's getting a little messier these days. I hope it'll get back to normal soon. So let's be clear. The testimony regarding this issue, the reality of an ET presence, these will be the biggest hearings of all time. But they will have the biggest audience of all time.
Is it the Senate? Is it Marco Rubio, the Senate Intelligence Committee?
I'm getting to the point.
Congress?
So when you're talking about something this big, this profound, you go to the top, right? And there is a hierarchy of committees in Congress. The select intel committees are like considered numero uno. Number 2 is the Armed Service Committee. After that, it may vary. Homeland Security is important. Ways and Means are pretty important. But when it comes to national security, the Senate Intel is numero uno. And so it is hard for me to imagine that when the real hearings start with witnesses like Salas and others, that it's going to be some subcommittee of a House committee. No, it's going to be the Intel Committee. The tip-off to that is who sponsored the first legislation in this issue. It was Marco Rubio who put it in the COVID omnibus bill, right? 2020. That launches the whole thing. And then who gets involved in the next bill? Gillibrand, also a member of the Senate Intel Committee. And who sponsors the language in the third bill, 2023? Mark Warner, that now chairman of the Senate Intel Committee. Rubio is the ranking member. You getting the message now? The House is trying to get in there. The House is looking back and going, I know this is really huge, and the Senate is probably, it defers there, but we count, we matter, and this is going to be enormously political implications, right? And so any person that's attached to it, they're riding history, like the people that became famous on the Watergate hearings. And so they're down there, and Andre Carson's going, I think I can make a move here. And so he calls a committee hearing. Okay, good for him. All right, and that's been the only House briefing that has taken place. The other one was, of course, in the Senate, Gillibrand, Subcommittee of Armed Services. But I should mention, by the way, in case I don't forget, that on March 28th, prior to this committee hearing with Kirkpatrick, Gillibrand had another briefing in front of her subcommittee on emerging threats and capabilities with the Secretary of Defense. And Moultrie, who is now in another undersecretary position, a very high position, not related to the AARO program, was there. And another undersecretary was there. And they were discussing a range of things. But lo and behold, in other words, it wasn't about this, but she chose to bring it up anyway. And she brought it up to the Secretary of Defense, Austin, about the funding and how things going, and is the funding getting there in time? Is this thing going the way it should be? And several people answered, including Austin. This was the first time in the history of this issue that a Secretary of Defense has been asked in a hearing or briefing of Congress a question about this issue. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of progress we're making. And Austin gave her a standard, sober response. And then a few weeks later, you've got Kirkpatrick back in front of the same committee. I mean, I understand people are skeptical, and they've been around this many times, and I've been talking about disclosure for 25 years. But folks, it's happening, right? Of all things end, including truth embargoes. Accept it, embrace it, be generous, and understanding that what they're trying to do is not easy. They just can't hold a meeting and say, hey, they're here. Sorry, we didn't tell you. Now leave us alone. No, this is huge. And by the way, there's a lot of people in journalism and science and in Congress that had nothing to do with the truth embargo, right? Nothing to do with it at all. And they really want to be involved in this. They want to be involved in this momentous paradigm shift that's coming. And this process, which is dragging on a little longer than it should have, but there's been some issues that you're aware of, is giving them an opportunity to be involved. Perfect example, Avi Loeb. He's been able to get involved and restore, to some degree, Harvard's credibility on this issue after what they did to John Mack. Now, understand, he's not prepared to go all the way on this. And what does he know? I think Avi Loeb knows for sure there's an ET presence. He's got connections up the wazoo. But he's going far enough to put Harvard in the game. You're going to see a lot of this, right? And so, again, you have to view it that way, and then it starts to make sense.
But what's the end of... Okay. So what's the end of the process, though? If it is as you state, and by the way, I agree with you, okay? But if it is as you state that they just can't do it, they can't do it. It's just too huge of an issue. It's just
no, I didn't say that. I said that. I said that there's a way they have to do it, and it is because it's huge. More entities need to be involved. They need to be able to participate in something this big.
Well, so what's the end of the process, though? Are we going to have to wait 15 years because it's so complex, or is this something that is imminent? You know, what is the end of the process, and what would you expect that statement to be when the process is ended?
It's to me pretty straightforward. The congressional hearings will be held, and very appropriately, the president and the Congress and everybody else in government and the Air Force and the Navy, everybody's going to be watching this. Everybody in the whole big shebang is going to be watching together as these witnesses give testimony, like in a trial that basically shows beyond a reasonable doubt this is non-human technology and a non-human presence. In other words, they all find out together. And of course, that includes the president, who would be watching these hearings. Everybody learns together what a lot of people knew in 47 and others have known all along, but now we learn together, comes out, it's true, and the ultimate endgame is the president then confirms it. After everybody is already convinced, the president confirms it, which strips away the political risks, makes it less partisan. Also, it's also appropriate. He's the only person, in my view, that can end the truth embargo. Now, understand, there are other heads of state out there that could do it tomorrow. I like to remind our government of that. We keep getting a break. Nobody wants to step forward. Macron could come forward tomorrow. France has been involved in this issue for years and blow the whole thing wide open. Or they could quickly hold some hearings over the French Parliament. The next thing you know, boom, there it is. And Macron is the disclosure president. Hey, what can I say? I'm just saying to our government, you're really making progress now. Don't stop. And to answer the other part of your question, look, any day now, there's going to be an announcement. It'll be a briefing or something, not a briefing, but like a press release or a news article is going to turn up on CNN that the Senate Intel Committee is announcing that on such and such a day, they're going to hold a hearing on the UAP issue, taking testimony from members of the current and former members of the United States military. That could come tomorrow. All right. The moment you hear that announcement, start bringing in, snacks and drink and whatever, so you can, sit in front of the television for long periods of time and enjoy yourself. And when the day that hearing starts, you can start literally counting down the days until the president confirms the ET presence, and it will not take many days. 2 weeks would be more than enough. I know what this testimony is going to be to some degree. I know a lot of it. And a lot of my colleagues know. I think you even know. And let me tell you, once that testimony is out in the open, not on some publication out of small website or something. I'm talking about in the open with 20, 50, 100 million people watching, under oath to Congress, at penalty of perjury and jail time. Once that testimony comes out, game over. Then it's just a question of how much of it does it take for people to go, that's it. We've got it. At that point, the president will know and the president will act and we get disclosure. It should happen this summer. It needs to happen before the political season, which starts obscenely early in this country, right? As you know, but you've got to raise billions of dollars to win the office. So you got to start early. It has to start before things get rolling this fall, because if this issue is still hanging out there, it's just going to be extremely annoying and confusing, and everybody's going to be irritated by it. On the other hand, if they can get it done this summer, the president's made the announcement, it means that every single person running for Congress, running for Senate, running for governor, running for anything, is going to start their campaign in a post-disclosure world where the presence of this non-human technology and presence is confirmed. It is fact. And they can just speak to that. They can say, I don't know anything. They could say, oh, I've got a massive UFO library in my basement. I'm very knowledgeable. I was a friend of Stanton Friedman's. Whatever. They can answer legitimate questions with legitimate statements, and the whole thing will get infused in the 2024 election, which means it becomes democratized. And so now the ET presence becomes a matter before the entire American people to deal with, not just the AARO office or some members on the Hill, because they will decide in 2024 which candidates will be appropriate to elect with respect to this new paradigm we are living in. Mm-hmm. Who is capable of understanding this? Who has spoken to it? Who has stepped up? Whatever. Now, there's certain people that are way out in front. Rubio, Warner, Gillibrand, Tim Burchett, God knows, Andre Carson, Diego, they're out in front. They will soon be joined by other members of Congress, because members of Congress are very keen on getting attention, media, and being seen as being important. And so the idea that they're going to sit back and let the biggest issue of all time unfold and be resolved while they sit in the back bench, I don't think so.
I had John Ramirez on earlier this week, and he brought up the same point, Steve. And I thought it's an interesting take and a sobering one, that UAPs and where we are right now is an election issue. And that's why we may see this rapidly develop over the next coming months, because of the 2024 cycle that's about to happen, and that this is now a constituent and an election issue.
It is an election issue, but again, the elections are not really underway. You're in the early stages right now, and money's being raised and people are declaring. I get that. But in terms of the media buys and all that stuff, no, we're not there yet. So it's not formally an election issue.
That's not what I'm referring to. I'm not talking about commercials yet. But he's saying that it's going to be set in place now because it will be addressed in 2024. And I tend to agree with that.
Absolutely. But again, if we're still in the, we're looking at it, and, we're checking, and we'll let you know if we're in that kind of a mode come end of summer. It may be an election issue, but it'll be a complete mess. Right? It'll be just an absolute mess. The issue is now spread everywhere. It's in everybody's mind. It's in massive media stories, including the one that we're going to talk about in a bit. And so the idea that candidates are being asked about it and going, well, I don't really know. I mean, they haven't said anything yet. I mean, I hear there's an office set up, or whatever. No. And without confirmation, the candidates are not going to take the time and bother to actually go read something about it, to get informed about it. And so it's going to be a friggin' mess, and everybody's going to be mad as hell, because candidates who want to be a senator from a state will be asked a question about Roswell, and they'll go, Roswell? What state is that in? And people are going to start ripping their hair out. No. If it's going to be an election issue, it's got to be after confirmation. That will be fantastic. Without confirmation, it's going to be a friggin' clown show.
Well, I think that's exactly my point, and the point that John Ramirez was trying to make, that get this resolved now, because this is going to be an issue to support the 2024 election cycle.
And there's something that I like to talk about a lot, and I know that some of the members on the Hill have figured this out. It is going to be an issue of enormous importance that will attract enormous attention, right? If you're willing to speak to it. And it is completely nonpartisan. No matter how far out in left field or right field you are, no matter how much trolling you're getting about your politics, right? And how much hate mail you're getting. they've already figured out they can speak to this issue, and it's cool. It's you're not going to get attacked by the right if you're a Democrat addressing this issue, and vice versa. And so it gives these politicians who basically have to prostitute themselves, raise all this tons of money, lie through their teeth, and go through all these hoops, jump through all these hoops in order to get into, a seat. And most of them really hate it. They don't want to do this. This is the system we have until we change it. They have to go through it. It's like wading through a Louisiana swamp to get to, go to dinner. It's awful. So they would love to be able to talk about this issue, right? I don't want to talk about that position I had on immigration in 1982. Let's talk about my position on the extraterrestrial presence. And everybody's going, yeah. Let's talk about that. This is a massive gift to politicians who have to go through one of the most obscene, awful political processes in any democratic country in the world right now. And I'm thinking, if I'm them, I want disclosure. Get it done, right? I'm reading all of Richard Dolan's books right now. I'm ready. Get this issue confirmed, and I'll be out there, and I'll be answering questions, and I'll become a senator.
By the way, Bassett is in his new office. That is not green screen. I can make him walk to the back and pour me a martini out of one of those decanters in the back. Very impressive. Nice digs, my friend. Nice digs.
Oh, I got some even better digs, but that's later this year.
That's later. It's more disclosure, I might add.
Yeah. Oh, I have some things to disclose pretty soon that are pretty cool. I wanted to disclose them a year ago, as you know. But
yes.
This is Los Angeles. It's film. It's where the film industry is, and there is a concept here called development hell.
Yes.
And until you've been in development hell, you really can't appreciate it appropriately. And now I've been in it, and I'm not complaining, but it is a young man's game. You want to be going through development hell, making a movie at 41, 36, not 73.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's almost over, and so hopefully I'll have some really cool stuff to talk about on your show in the future.
Somebody just said my background is a hologram. Yeah, I know. It's a new technology though.
It's good.
Yeah, this is green screen, but it's a new technology. It's like the holodeck in Star Trek, in that it's not real, but it is. It's
oh, you spoofed this. You spoofed this.
This is not real. No,
I was gonna say you take all your cars down and then put up a green screen behind you of guitars. And I'm going, wait a minute.
It's a hologram. It's a holodeck. It's a holodeck.
Yes, indeed.
Now let's get back on this for a second, because I felt that Ernst. I think Ernst you had to have a good cop, bad cop in a situation like this. You always do. I think she was a little angry, which I enjoy. You need to keep the pressure on, and you can't make everybody feel like this is phone in time, right? And this is not important.
Right.
But she kept pushing for a China-Russian resolution. And he wasn't going there. He said that there was, I'm paraphrasing for Kirkpatrick, but he said, well, there's some indicators, but not right now. No, I'm not willing to go there. Now, maybe he can't go there because it's a geopolitical issue, but it really seemed that Ernst wanted that out of him. What did you make of that back and forth?
Well, look, senators can ask any question they want to. Right, and they can make mistakes. That happens. It's just no big deal. It's no big deal. Kirkpatrick, the only reason that China comes up at all with Kirkpatrick is because of the Chinese balloon fiasco, right? Which was technically for a while a UAP. Otherwise, there's absolutely no reason to ask him about U.S.-China relations, right? Period. That's not his office. Nothing. Right. But because of that fiasco, he got asked about it. And of course, his answer is, there's not much I can really say about that. And so she kind of went off the rail there, but it's okay. It's all right. They're used to that. And he handled as best he could, but he's the wrong person. Austin is the one you ask about that. But the Chinese balloon fiasco was a very learning experience teaching experience, I think, for the government. For those, particularly those in the government still on the fence, meaning, I don't know, should we go forward or go backward? Can we just do another, Robertson report and just pretend this never happened? No, is this. The interest in this subject now is intense. It is everywhere. It is filling up Twitter and Facebook. It's filling up hundreds of podcasts, netcasts, broadcasts. It's generating just in what I'm covering on my print media archive. I've now logged in, and these are proper articles. These are English language mainstream articles. 4,000 articles since December 16th of 2017. 4,000. Go read them all. Have fun. All right. And so anything turns up that's UAP-ish, people are on it. I don't know what's going on. Journalists jumping in, right? Statements, stuff on Twitter, things are being, and so poor Biden has had some things happen. That is not fair. But these giant surveillance balloons, they fly over at 80,000 feet, right? They're not in the way of any airplanes and things. I mean, that's the way it works. Ours fly over there at 80,000 feet. Their satellites also fly over and take pictures of us. They have their own Google Earth over there, right? So we do this. That's part of the deal. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows that everybody spies on each other. Just don't talk about it, right? Let's don't make a thing about it. It's necessary to maintain the peace. Well, apparently one of these balloons sprung a leak or something and just kind of came on down, right? Okay. Because you lose a little air, you're going to come down. Doesn't have to take much. And so it drops down into the air traffic. Now it's being seen by airplanes, and it's a risk to air travel. And you can't ignore it. I mean, if they could have, they would have just let it keep going and just sail on out to the Atlantic and speak no more of it. But no, now they got to deal with it. And the UAP interest just intensified that. And so Biden was in an impossible situation. What do I do about the stupid balloon? Now, the Chinese could have given them an out, right, by acknowledging it. So sorry, very sorry. That balloon got a little low. Very sorry, but we do surveillance, you do surveillance, something like that. But that's not the way the game is played. So they just denied it. It's a weather balloon. Now, you see the irony of that, I'm sure, Jimmy. Right?
We all
weather
did.
balloons, man, they have played a very important part of the last 100 years. And that really irritated Biden. So they shot the damn thing down with a $500,000 missile, make a statement. But at the same time, because everybody's looking at the sky and thinking balloons, they started seeing other things. These weren't big balloons. They were small balloons with stuff hanging down from them. Now, what do you do about those? Well, there was a lot of confusion and misstatements, and the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. I don't know what the hell was going on, but it was fiasco. And so we ended up apparently shooting down a couple of ridiculous, unimportant small balloons that might have been put up by some fraternity guys with 2 more $500,000 missiles, right? That's roughly what I know. All right. And so, again, how big a fiasco? Well, look at their problem then. Okay, first of all, these weren't very big, so I doubt there was any wreckage. It was blown to bits. And so they don't want to say that, right? They just say we can't find the wreckage. Now that irritated people, but there probably wasn't any wreckage. A small balloon blown to bits over Lake Huron and Prudhoe Bay. You think you're going to go find wreckage? Now, if it had been another giant Chinese surveillance balloon, there might have been some, but no, they didn't show any footage of it either. That irritated people.
They never told us anything, but it was important enough to fire missiles over North America.
Well, there was no way they could keep that a secret, okay?
Well, but here's the bigger issue with that. We haven't fired any missiles since, so suddenly there's nothing. There, in the span of 7 days, we shoot down 4 objects, and nothing since. And that,
I think it was 3, but whatever.
Well, it was 3 plus China.
Well, okay. Well, look. Here's the thing. Look. They don't want to shoot things down, right? This was a fiasco. In other words, this is a UAP thing that got out of hand because the public interest is so intense that there was no way they could kind of finesse it. All right. So they had to deal with it. And then the thing just got ridiculous. So again, under my interpretation, people are angry. They showed the shoot down of the big Chinese surveillance balloon. Really cool. Blew it up, came down. Why didn't they show the footage of the other ones? Well, let me tell you, if you're the Air Force or you're the U.S. government, and you just shot down some silly ass fraternity balloon with a $500,000 missile, you do not want to show the film of that, right? It's an embarrassment. So you just let's move on, folks. But because of the history of the government on this issue, everybody's thinking, oh, whoa, you're not showing film. You can't find the wreckage. Oh, this might have been Tic Tacs or something, or Tic Tacs hanging from balloons. Well, that's the price of all this secrecy and nonsense.
We're supposed to ask those questions, Steve.
What now?
We're supposed to ask those questions.
No, I'm not saying you shouldn't ask them. I'm just trying to explain why you're not getting the answers.
Yeah, and I just find it, for me, to have missiles fired over North America like that in rapid succession, without answers to the American people about what they were shooting down and imagery of it, to have none of that included. If it was important enough to shoot missiles over North America, I think we deserve some transparency, and we didn't have any of that.
Well, what can I say, Jimmy? I've lived a long time, and the list of things that we deserve transparency on, we don't get transparency, is an extremely long list.
Yeah, except for, you're right. Steve, you've never been more right. But we're talking about missiles over North America. We're not. I mean, I think it's a pretty serious situation.
Well, I'm pretty sure that when they shot the one down over Prudhoe Bay, they got on the Alaska side and they aimed at it heading towards the Arctic Ocean, and when they shot the one down over Lake Huron, I'm sure the missile was aiming towards Canada. So it became Trudeau's problem. Yeah. But whatever, it was a fiasco. All right, look, they don't shoot at extraterrestrial craft. Right. They don't do that. They knew a long time ago you don't do that. And that's another point that's interesting. All right. We have these sightings all the time, everywhere. Pretty good ones, right? Here, there, everywhere. Ships, aircraft carriers, they don't shoot at them. Interesting. But a Chinese weather balloon turns up, we got to take that sucker down. And so what's the difference? First of all, they know it's a Chinese weather balloon rather. And so, okay, we're going to shoot it down. They also know that these other things are ET craft, and they know you don't shoot at them. All right. So they're basically, it's all common sense. All right. Now, but they didn't want to shoot at the Chinese balloon. Believe me, they don't want to shoot at Chinese balloons. Right. The damn thing dropped down to 40,000 feet. It happens. Remember the U-2 back in Eisenhower's administration, just before the big summit? Right? When the U-2 pilot, Gary Powers, got a little low or something and got taken out by a missile and had to parachute down, and it became a fiasco and ended the summit. These things happen. So consider this Chinese weather balloon not a big UAP thing, but another U-2 fiasco part 2.
Back in the 60s, I'll take this to a whole nother level for you, Steve. Back in the 60s, right here in my town of Palmdale, Lockheed is test firing a remote controlled drone in the 60s. Mm-hmm. They launch it. It goes errant. You know what we did? We shot it down over the city of Palmdale. Yeah. We scrambled a jet, fired a missile over a populated American city, and shot that thing down. Mm. Oh, yeah. All right. But we were also told what we shot down. And it was a secret research project. It was a remote controlled drone. Imagine that technology in the 1960s. All of that was transparent and disclosed.
It did happen over Palmdale, and probably pieces of it landed in somebody's swimming pool. This happened over at Lake Huron and Prudhoe Bay. So, the government's going to go with the flow here, right?
But we still have imaging data and we have sensor data, and there was zero transparency back to the public. And I'm not satisfied with not telling us anything. I'm not satisfied with that, and I was pretty surprised.
Well, we did find out they shot something down, right? We got that. We just didn't get the details, right? Because they were embarrassing, right? Governments hate to be embarrassed. This is something that activists know and take advantage of whenever they can.
And shouldn't you, as an activist, be pounding and angry and burning stuff down? Isn't that what you do? Hey, Steve, let's take a break. Let's do this right here.
Go to commercial. It's going to take a while to recover.
We'll be right back. Our guest tonight is Steve Bassett. I am Jimmy Church. This is Fade.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back.
This is Jimmy Church, and I want to introduce you to LifeWaves X39 Stem Cell Activation Patch, which has totally transformed my health, my sleep, brain, and my eyes. I no longer need reading glasses. X39 is a true breakthrough in regenerative science. Using light, X39's patented age reversal technology is clinically proven to signal the activation of younger stem cells, accelerating the body's natural healing process. X39 promotes restoration and rejuvenation, bringing the life-changing benefits that I've experienced. By naturally elevating a master signaling peptide in the body, X39 boosts vitality, health, and wellness and resets 4,000 genes to a younger, healthier state. It's one patch, once a day, and you can turn back time with X39. Just go to healingworksnow.com. That's works with an X. healingworksnow.com.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests, shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's gonna be a night to remember. You don't wanna forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I wanna see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Stephen Bassett is with us. I'm being very serious about X39. I am not wearing glasses. You need to check it out. It's a patch. I wear it right here, base of my neck. Nobody can see it. It's stem cells. Yeah, I got my vision back. And Stephen, you wear glasses once in a while when you're trying to look really smart.
Yeah.
And I thought it would work for me wearing glasses and trying to look like the smart guy in the room. No. But I got my vision back, man. I can see. It's crazy. It's
interesting.
Yeah,
I can see close. I need glasses for far. But hey, look, I'm waiting for those stem cell patches you put on, like completely rejuvenate your liver. And that's the ones I'm waiting for.
Oh, that sounds
only a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to wear them over each eye, but it doesn't work for the show. So I want to get to some of the stuff that's in the press, and we're going to get to the witnesses here in a second, because that was a point that Kirkpatrick brought up in the hearing, that he said over 24 witnesses. And apparently it was Gillibrand that sent him those witnesses. And she said that there will be more. He said his staff is overwhelmed at the moment. She said, well, I'll write a letter. If you need my help. So we're going to circle back to that because I just saw in the comments that there is, I'm going to pop this up here.
Yeah.
It says the House Oversight Committee is reportedly preparing for a congressional UAP hearing in June. So we'll circle back to this because over the weekend, crazy news went viral around the world about cattle mutilations in Texas.
Yeah.
Now, as if we haven't had a load of everything lately when it comes to UFOs and UAPs. And now we have this coming back. What'd you make of, and not only the mutilations, but it was all of the terms, right? No blood, no tire tracks, no footprints, precision removal of certain things. What went through your mind?
Well, I track the media constantly every day, and cattle mutilations just literally disappeared from media coverage. And that didn't mean it wasn't going on. It's kind of a basic story. I mean, once you've covered one cattle mutilation, you covered them all. And so I could easily see why over these number of years, you have an event like that. And it's been in the news. The whole issue about it being very likely not of human origin is out there. And so if you're a rancher and you find one of those, what? Are you going to shock anybody by calling up a reporter and saying, come out and look at this, my cow, look how it's been cut up? No, it's just not news anymore. It's like crop circles are disappearing from the news because they are normal, completely normal now. They come in every year, but hey, you've been covering them. What more is there to say? In other words, the normalization of the ET presence has been underway for some time. And I think that's probably what's happening. I think that there have been instances of this consistently over the years. It's not like the ETs took a break or they didn't need any cow blood, but rather it's just, what's the point of reporting it? However, as the issue starts to get hot again, right? Some ranchers probably called up the paper and said, look, I don't like this. And the reporters come out, they take a look at it, and they know the issue is hot, so they write up the articles. So this is what I call one of the 5 ET related phenomena, the animal mutilations or animal harvesting. And it's worth noting that in all of these years that I've been aware of it, going back to the very first articles on this and Linda Moulton Howe's work, the government has not come up with an explanation, period. There is no explanation for this. I mean, no explanation that has been proven. They just can't explain it. And the reason they can't explain, well, let me put it this way. If they can explain it, and I think they know what it is, they can't say the reason because it's ET and there are no ETs. And so this is just another example of the dog that didn't bark, right? In that famous show, Holmes. He solved the case because the dog should have barked, but it didn't. Mm-hmm. This is another case. The government, the killing of very expensive ranch animals is a big deal, particularly to the ranchers. And the idea that they're getting killed and they don't know what the hell is killing them is it should have been, they should have absolutely been on top of that and put a stop to it. They can't, right? I assure you, if in American cities, people started finding dogs,
right?
With cord out and, special, with laser-like precision, they can't explain. My God, it would have been an uprising in this country and all hell would have broken loose. Fortunately, the don't seem to have an interest in dogs or cats. It's cows. And so this is just another example, like the Chinese weather balloon, that for those that want to cling to the truth embargo and to the bitter end, forget about it. Anything that happens that has a UAP connection is going to be news. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
And so the timing is not suspect. I don't think the timing is suspect at all. No. I think it's an obvious thing. It is news. It's an unresolved issue that has been going back not only for decades, but the first reporting of animal mutilations like this was in 1606 in England. And where they had herds of sheep that the same thing, that have complete carcasses, just mutilated sheep. It was like,
but not in a way that would account for wild animals. Again, the ET presence goes back thousands of years. May not be the same ETs, right?
Right.
Would be, I think, absurd to assume that, but it doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned. We are a biosphere with a pretty rich life spectrum, and for 200,000 years, we've had a fully sentient species, and so that's going to attract attention from those who care in our galaxy, and they have been dealing with that for a long time. I'm only interested in the last 73 years. That's enough for me. And of course, what's going on now is very special. This is not Egypt. This is not Easter Island. This is a fully global civilization with advanced weapons and advanced communications that has already sent a craft outside the solar system. It's time for us to meet our neighbors.
Now, let's get to these witnesses and well, okay, let's actually start here. What have you heard? I've read the article with Danny Sheehan talking about this, so we can actually start there. And who may these witnesses be? And are they the same witnesses that Kirkpatrick has interviewed?
We know some of the witnesses that have gone down there, but not all of them. Salas is one. I think Graves for sure. I think Salas mentioned a couple of other nuclear weapons tampering guys. These are the most important witnesses, by the way. The nuclear weapons tampering witnesses are the most important, period, right? And they will have their day. But the others, no. By and large, the witnesses don't want to go down there and be pre-interviewed for a hearing and then run out and tell everybody they've been there. No. I don't think they're necessarily being put under an NDA. Probably not. But overall, it's not a good thing. You don't want to do that. You want to let the process go forward. So we're not going to know the names of most of these witnesses until they actually turn up at the hearing itself. Gillibrand has probably referred a few, but others probably in Congress. But they're also coming from other directions. They have one of the questions that she asked him was, are you going to set up a report structure where people can just send stuff in, like a mailbox or something? And he said, yeah, they're putting that together so anybody can send a report directly into them, particularly I think from within the government military services. Something else I want to mention. In this article, which you just referred to, which is one of the most comprehensive I've ever seen, it was in yesterday's Daily Mail by Josh Boswell, who's been covering this issue for a long time. It is mind-blowing. Okay, its headline is exclusive. 6 whistleblowers who claim they worked on military UFO programs, retrieving and analyzing crash material, have come forward to spill their secrets to senior members of Congress. At some point, I'd like to talk about this. I've highlighted a bunch of stuff. It's mind-blowing. Boswell, again, the UK papers get ahead of our papers. They tend to get this stuff together sooner. The Washington Post and New York Times should be writing this, but no, it's coming from the Daily Mail. No problem. It forces the hand of the Washington Post and New York Times to step in and go, okay, we're going to have to go here. Please, folks, read this article. I believe there's a link on your site, Jimmy, to this Daily Mail article. All right. Mm-hmm. So the witnesses are not going to come forward in detail until they actually appear before Congress. Again, we've gotten a good taste of what some of them are going to say because they have gone public, like Fravor and Graves and Bob Salas and others. But there are other witnesses, and this article in the refers to a lot of these. I mean, let me just give you a taste. Hang on a second. By the way, while I'm looking for this, let me mention that everything I'm talking about now and a lot more I'm going to get into at a conference coming up called the Contact in the Desert Conference, June 2 to 4 in Indian Wells near Palm Springs. There's going to be 2,000 people and 60 speakers. I'm going to do a workshop, 2 hours of nothing but Q&A, as well as a lecture on some of these things and other stuff. Contact in the Desert, please come and join me. Now, let me bring up this. I've got the wrong article. Let me just see if here it is. Okay. Let me just give you a taste. Okay. This by Boswell. He mentions Nolan. Let's see. Well, first of all, he really gets into Danny Sheehan's work, right? And Danny Sheehan is way in front of this issue, a lot more than people know, right? Sheehan said that some of these half dozen whistleblowers briefed the staff of Senate committees dealing with military intelligence even before the NDA was passed. We knew that, and may have been the inspiration for senators to include the reverse engineering language. What dominates this article, it's not just this, is that there's all these references to reverse engineering, including witness statements from about 6 or 7 different people, right? Essentially, this article is saying flat out, we have been reverse engineering ET technology since 47. This is the strongest article I've ever seen that's gone into that. I mean, it touches on all the bases. Nolan, Jacques Vallée's diary, the Wilson Davis notes, which Gary Nolan personally vouches for because he's known Davis for years. Okay. The Wilson Davis notes are the real deal. Now, this is really important to me as an activist. Why? When people ask, well, okay, there's ETs here, so what? Is that going to get me a job? Is that going to help me raise my kids? I mean, what, how much difference can it make? Right? I can see all the ETs I want, ETs at Marvel tentpole movies. I mean, why do I need to know about the real ones? Reverse engineering. You see, one of the very difficult public relations problem the government is going to have, and it is going to be a whopper, is what technology or how much ET tech did you get your hands on? Question 2, how much reverse engineering have you done with that tech? Question 3, have you been successful? Question 4, if you have been successful, why isn't the fruits of that technology and that reverse engineering been made available to the human race, which, in case you haven't noticed, is going down the drain? In other words, what have we lost? What things can we not do? What solutions could we have had if technology derived from ET sources could have been made available to us years, if not decades sooner? These are really tough questions. And if it turns out they had some extraordinary tech, but we couldn't use it because in order for them to give it out or put it out, they had to acknowledge the ET presence, and that wasn't going to happen. Therefore, the tech remained classified. This is a real problem. And so disclosure.
It is a problem, but there's a difference here, and I will always play devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Is this when we are talking about whistleblowers that worked on reverse engineering programs of this technology to reverse engineer it? What are we actually talking about here, Steve? Are we talking about a little piece of melted metal that is this big, or are we talking about a flying frigging saucer?
Talking about flying frigging saucers.
Right. And so in this statement here from Boswell, or in the article,
right,
those what are we talking about in reference here? Are we talking about how put off and little pieces of melted metamaterial and speculation, or are we talking about an intact craft? And there's a big difference here about what it can be interpreted as ET crash retrieval materials.
Well, yeah, if you read the article, those that read the article, okay, what you're going to find is what this article is saying. And it's not almost exactly direct. It doesn't say it matter-of-factly, but it's clearly what you take from it, is that some of the witnesses that are going to appear in front of these committees are going to be crash retrieval witnesses. people that were involved in the retrieval of crashed ET vehicles are going to be witnesses. Now, are they even more profound than the nuclear weapons tampering witnesses? No. The turning off of our missiles is the single most important piece of information we know about the presence of ETs on this planet. Everything else comes underneath that. But again, crash retrieval is going to be in play early on, which means reverse engineering is in play, unless they can make the case, look, yeah, we retrieved them, but we put them in a trunk, like in that, the Spielberg movie, and stuck it in a warehouse.
Yeah, warehouse 13. Yes.
Yeah, no, nobody's going to buy that. And so that's on the table now too. This article gets into that. It is a compilation. There's very few mistakes in this article. It is amazing what Boswell has done here. He's put some tremendous work in this, but most of what's in it is kind of known, but he's consolidated it into a single piece with some new stuff from Danny Sheehan and Gary Nolan. But again, you just can't keep up with the number of statements being made by people we know and new people that are turning up. The dam is not just leaking now. It's got giant cracks. Water is pouring out, in giant streams. The damn thing is about to go. And if you're a member of Congress, or if you're a scientist who's been debunking this thing your whole career, you need to kind of head to higher ground and get out from, the way of the dam break, right? In other words, get on top of this issue. Get on the disclosure train. You don't have a lot more time.
You brought up Wilson Davis, and I think Wilson Davis is directly connected to this article and what Boswell is stating here. In that, if we take, and I think that the Wilson Davis document is an accurate transcription of a conversation that did take place between Eric Davis and Thomas Wilson. Okay, I do. So if we do that, then we get to two important issues. One, the bigot list, not bigot like what people think. The bigot list goes back to World War II, and who is approved to be in the boys' club and exposed to the biggest secrets. Okay,
yes.
That's a bigot list. So we have the bigot list, and then we have the fact that Davis says that he met with three people from, we're assuming it's Lockheed Skunk Works, where the statement was made, we have a craft, but we can't get this thing to fly. So if we have whistleblowers that are coming into now, that's exactly what this article is talking about. Whistleblowers that have worked on reverse engineering programs of an intact craft. So if that's what how would somebody, whistleblower protection be damned? Why would somebody break ranks from the bigot list? I don't care what kind of protection you're under. That is a very exclusive club and an impossible one to get into.
Well, it depends what you mean by breaking ranks. I mean, this was
the whole point to get on that bigot list is because you are trusted and you will never talk.
Well, yeah, they do talk, right? Things happen. Stuff gets out. The Wilson Davis notes, remember, it was a private conversation. The notes ended up with Edgar Mitchell, right? I mean, he died. It was given out to another person. I mean, it wasn't like, Davis ran down to the New York Times and told him a story. Look, the truth embargo is gone on so long, and there's so much stuff now that is embargoed. They can't contain it, right? It's just simply bigger than they can handle, and it's going to be leaking all over the place. By the way, right? Talk about Wilson Davis as a document. If that document were to somehow be substantiated, absolutely verified completely in congressional hearing, hell, that could drop the truth embargo right there in its tracks. But let me tell you.
But that's what I'm saying, Stephen. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a whistleblower, right? A whistleblower, you need somebody that is on that bigot list that's going to come out and go, look, I've been working at Skunk Works. We have a craft in Palmdale. We've had the thing for 30 years. This is what is going on. That's a whistleblower. And that you need somebody from the bigot list that will come out and not obfuscate and not get into some existential conversation. I'm talking about facts.
I understand
stuff out.
Look, the problem, the word is need. Do we need them to get disclosure? No, we do not. Do they not want to come forward while the process is underway? No, they do not. You're going to learn about these people post-disclosure, not pre-disclosure. All right. And again, the witnesses that are going to be available are more than sufficient to confirm this. Davis may very well end up testifying in front of Congress under oath. That'll be pretty powerful.
That'd
Right?
be a big deal.
Again, I assure you, there is enough to lock this thing down already available. But let me point out something else. Well, first of all, before I do that, let me clarify something.
Sure.
You know, I have a thing about whistleblower witnesses, right? I do not believe they're whistleblowers; they're witnesses. And if you go and read the transcript or watch the hearing that Gillibrand went with Kirkpatrick, and then compare it to the article, Boswell in his Daily Mail article keeps referring to whistleblowers. Patrick said witnesses. Gillibrand said witnesses, because that is what they are. They are not whistleblowers. I know it's catchy and people like it, and they like the idea of somebody's coming out from the government and they're blowing the whistle on the truth embargo, but that's not what they are. Snowden was a whistleblower, and he's living in Russia. And so casting these witnesses as whistleblowers, they don't want to be thought of that way. They don't want people looking at them at that way. They're going, well, people are going to want, well, you should probably flee, shouldn't you? I mean, you shouldn't be here. I mean, and plus they could get death threats from people that think, oh, a whistleblower, that's Snowden, that's unpatriotic. No, they are witnesses. They are testifying to events and evidence they are aware about regarding a program called the Truth Embargo, that I call the Truth Embargo, that was completely legal, right? It was legal. May not like it. It's like the war in Vietnam. I know actually the war in Vietnam might have been illegal, but whatever. The point I'm making is the governments do things that are legal we don't like. These witnesses are not whistleblowers. And so that's the first point. The second point I want to make is this. You know, everybody's all up, not about the Wilson Davis notes, and that's really cool. But, most people have forgotten there are tons of documents out there related to this issue. Guess what? Huge numbers are on government file servers, right? And one I'll just point out to you right now, if your listeners or viewers want to have a fun time, here's a simple URL. It's vault.fbi.gov. Doesn't get simpler than that. Vault.fbi.gov. And when it comes up on the right side, slide down the menu until you get to unexplained phenomena and click on that, right? And then it takes you to a range of options regarding unidentified phenomena. Click on UFO. And under that are hundreds of documents, many redacted, sitting on the FBI files, and some have been there for years and years. A lot of people have forgotten about that. Some of these documents are going to end up turning up at the hearings, right? Somebody's going to be pointing, and they had been on the FBI vault file for 10 or 15 years. The evidence has always been there. It's been in front of us, right? All the time. The truth embargo says, don't look, don't talk about it, don't worry. But again, it's all there. And so we don't need Wilson Davis notes. Let's just go get the documents from the FBI vault file. And that's not the only one. The CIA has a whole bunch of documents related to this issue going back to the 40s. 2. In other words, once we finally realize it's over, and the government does sort of know that now, it's going to be pretty cool to start getting all of this stuff back out and bringing it out and dealing with it, but in a much more favorable atmosphere. The evidence for the extraterrestrial presence is absolutely overwhelming. It is an absolute proven fact, period. And people that say it isn't haven't looked at the evidence. And then they say to you, I don't think it's true. Okay. And you say it's fact. And you say there's evidence. Prove it to me. And I'm going, no, go look at the damn evidence yourself. And if you arrive at the conclusion that it's true, which you should, great. And if you don't, great. I don't care. All right. In other words, I'm not going to do your work for you. The evidence for this thing is overwhelming and massive. And the only reason why that isn't being screamed from every newspaper in the country is the government has spent 75 years and a huge amount of money to sort of warp our brains in such a way that we just will not make a big deal out of it, the truth embargo. So, hey, vault.fbi.gov and have some fun. There's hundreds of documents there. Some of them are very hard to read, but you can blow them up with, Google, Zoom and stuff.
Speaking of media, I reported this news earlier today. This was published in a journal, and is this. And again, the media hasn't picked up on this yet, and I expect it over the next couple of days. But Steve, in a major breakthrough for search for extraterrestrial life, scientists have detected repeating radio signals from an Earth-like planet outside of our solar system. And by the way, it's very close to us. The signals were detected by Breakthrough Listen. Okay. All right. Avi Loeb and Yuri Milner and that whole crew are coming from a planet called YZ Ceti, which is located only 130 light years from Earth. That is in our backyard.
Skipping a jump.
Yeah, the discovery of these signals is a major step forward in the search for alien life. It is the first time that scientists have detected repeating radio signals from an Earth-like planet. The signals are also very strong, which suggests that they could be coming from an intelligent civilization. The Breakthrough Listen project has been using a variety of radio telescopes to search for extraterrestrial life. And in 2017, the project announced the discovery of a set of repeating radio signals from a star called KIC 846-2852. I reported on that when it happened. These signals were dubbed WOW. However, the WOW signals were not repeated, and the scientists are not sure if they came from an alien civilization. The discovery of the signals from YZ Ceti is more significant because they are coming from an Earth-like planet. The radio signals from YZ Ceti were detected by the Green Bank Telescope in West Virginia. The signals were detected at a frequency of 1.1 gigahertz and lasted for about a millisecond. The signals were detected, Steve, in 2022. They were not announced until today in 2023. The scientists who detected the signals wanted to make sure that they were not coming from, get this, a natural source before they announced the discovery. Now, this potentially huge news for the obvious reasons, but I've also felt that the government needs this first. They need this, right? They need the James Webb. They need something else external from the scientific community before they go and cross the Rubicon of announcing something else.
Au contraire, monsieur. Now, they don't need it. Now, it would have been nice if it had happened, right? Say years ago, SETI had plenty of opportunities to maybe do that. It would have softened up the situation a bit. But I was always of a mind, and I've had a lot of people agree with me on this, that if SETI had ever found a signal, it wouldn't have been able to give it out. I mean, the real deal. All right. See, my problem with that is this. SETI was looking for signals when people involved in SETI knew there was an ET present. So SETI then becomes a front operation for the truth embargo. And that's one of the great scientific frauds of all time. So the whole looking for signal thing is always, stuck in my craw. However, the people who really need it are the scientists. Okay. In other words, boy, after it was 1958. So we're talking 42. After 63 years of looking for a signal, we actually found one, and it's probably an advanced civilization. And that would be really cool. And they would feel better about themselves. These are the same scientists that have basically just let the truth embargo go without even challenging it for all these decades. And so, yeah, the scientists could use a little action, and that would be fine. But let's face it, what's more significant? Yeah, we have gotten a signal from a planet out there that's Earth-like. They apparently have got cable, and it's a sitcom, it's a rom-com, and we think we like it. Or the Senate Intel Committee has just confirmed that the extraterrestrial presence, and this is a non-human technology, is now established as fact. Which is more important? All right. I think the latter. All right. But I don't want to disrespect these other efforts. There are things that are learned in these efforts to find these signals. It had helped advance radio telescopy and other things. It's not, but I've always been irritated, but the great scientific community that has made America what it is today, all these millions of scientists and academics at the institutions and the research labs laid down for the truth embargo for the last 75 years, meaning we just won't go there. We're not going to talk about that. The few that did, well, one of them committed suicide, Dr. James McDonald. Another one spent his whole life to the end, but didn't get vindicated, Alan Hynek. Roger Lear did some amazing work. He died. Didn't quite make it. There were a few courageous scientists. They haven't been acknowledged. They get no awards. They will hopefully get them in the future. And so the scientific community is going to have to do a hell of a lot more than find a signal from an Earth-like planet before I start going hurrah, hurrah.
Well, for them to, again, I'm not surprised by anything. But to go where nobody else is willing to go, which is we wanted to wait to make sure that this wasn't something natural. That's a really big deal, and I mean that's significant. You know, a few days ago it's cattle mutilations. You know, today it's signals from an Earth-like planet that aren't a natural source. We've got Avi Loeb and his book Extraterrestrial, and another book about to come out, all based on data. I think that these are amazing times, and they all just add up to one thing. Disclosure is here, and I think the planet is ready for it.
Look, the scientific community at various levels are trying to play a little catch up. They kind of know what's coming. These are not stupid people. They see what's coming. What can you do? What are you going to do? Right? Hold a press conference and say, "Well, I'm an astrophysicist, and I sort of always knew there was an ET presence." Nobody wants to hear that.
Right.
It's going to embarrass yourself. So they're trying to do something to show we're not idiots here, right? I don't blame them. It's fine. They're going to do the best they can, but they're not leading the charge. Okay, they're way behind. I just read an article the other day that it said that what was it? They expect some sort of a message would be coming in to our planet within the next 100 years from an intelligent source. And if there had been a comment section, I would have written, well, that's an interesting projection. You're only off by about 4,000 or 5,000 years, you know? So again, it's all part of the milieu. You know, why am I not setting things on fire? Look, the key to activism is focus. You've got to pick what you need to do, what you've got to do, and not be distracted as things get more and more and more crazy, which activism is always that way. All right. So I just don't let myself get drawn into, I mean, I'm not going to invest much time in the old Chinese balloon thing or you know, a lot of other things that turn up, like all the things that turn up about objects on Mars. They're cool, but you know, so what? Right? NASA probably has some much better photos than that. And don't be surprised if one day, very soon, suddenly you get a real crystal clear shot of a pinball machine or something on Mars, and everybody goes, oops, I guess there was a civilization. This will be part of the game of catch up. If you got something and you know you could be part of the game, when do you insert it? When do you make your move? If you go too early, you get screwed. If you go too late, nobody cares. And so the big show is about to start. And a lot of people want to be on the stage. They're going to find a way to play some kind of a role. And that's how I view it. And so I don't get upset with things that don't add up, because I know the core issue is going to be resolved soon. And in the post-disclosure world, we're not going to have to jump through all these hoops and go through all these speculations. We'll actually start having some real science told to us as it happens. We'll start getting huge amounts of information about past understandings, re-engineered this and re-engineered that, and it's going to be appropriate. And it's not going to stretch out for decades. It's going to happen pretty fast. I've waited a long time for this, and I've got a lot of people that contact me feeling the same way. We have waited a long time. It must happen now, not simply because I want it to happen. And as I will get into in some serious detail in my lecture at Contact in the Desert come June 2, we have to have it now. Disclosure is not a matter of should we or shouldn't we. It is an existential issue. If we don't get disclosure, I think we're done. I think it's over. Now, by that, I mean, if we don't disclosure like, say it gets they try to put it off another 10 years, we're screwed. Our situation right now on this planet is so messed up, so dire in so many levels, in so many ways. We are so over our head. We've got so much pain and suffering heading our way that it's going to be awful. 8 billion really pissed off people.
Yeah,
and I think,
you're probably more right than wrong there. But I've always got flowers hanging out of my pockets, right? So I always look at the bright side. But here's why I think that this Yuri Milner and Breakthrough release is so important. It's that 130 light year number.
yeah.
And there's reasons for that. It's a 260 years round trip, right? Okay.
Yeah.
If the Earth 260 years ago, you're seeing things that is taking, how many light years to go in a certain direction. But what was happening then? Cities were starting to be lit up. The life on this planet was becoming more and more obvious. You have the industrial age, you had pollution, you had carbon monoxide and coal and steam engines and things firing up for the very first time. That technical signature was picked up 130 light years away. It takes 130 light years to come back and send us a signal. Yeah. I would assume that from 50 light years and out to 100 light years and out around us, anybody that is more advanced than us, that is looking for life like we are with exoplanets, we should start to expect to hear from them now. And I think it's really that simple. And that's why that 130 light year number is so important.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you look at it one other way, we can talk about Marconi and Tesla. If you go back 130 years ago, when these dudes, and I'm not making light of this, were building monstrosities of radio towers, right? There was no government control of wattage of signals, right? 100,000 watts, million watts, Wardenclyffe, we're talking about huge radio signals going out at the speed of light. And it was seriously like a searchlight being activated, a beam being activated. So if you go out 50 light years out and 50 light years back, and that was 130 years ago. So now let's go to 65 years out and 65 years back. We should seriously start to expect to hear from somebody and maybe see somebody. And that's why it's happening like it is right now with probes and everything else. I think we've shown everybody where we're at. We're waving, and we should expect to get these things now, Steve.
Well, okay. I mean, I think that's kind of a nice view of right now. That planet that you're talking about is getting our silent movies. But let's take it up another level, Jimmy. I think ETs have been coming to this planet for a long time. Mm-hmm. And let's just take the last 10,000 years. Right? There's evidence all over the place that seems to point in that direction, and we know the show that tries to get that across and does a pretty good job. So they've been here a long time, and they're interstellar. And so, without getting into the communication issue, there is another issue, and that's called the travel issue, the getting here from there issue, and that I think is solved. Our understanding of travel is based upon the Einstein work of the early 1900s. It's about 100 years old. And anybody thinks that that's the be all end all of understanding space and time and how you go through it, I'm really sorry, but it's not the way it works. So the idea that there is a workaround to the Einstein approach to space and time, I think has been proven. The ETs can get here from there. Sure. And they're able to do it in reasonable lengths of time, because 20,000 years you're not exploring too well. So that's been established. All right. Now, if that's been the case and advanced civilization has been coming forward, they don't need to find out about us by catching signals from our planet. They just need to go into Google and Google up What are the near, it's like Google Maps, right? It'll be galactic Google. Just what are the planets near me? And they will get a list of those planets that were discovered long ago that have been logged into the system. That's how I think about the galaxy.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a numbers game, Steve. You have to have different levels of progress when it comes to ET. Mm-hmm. Just here in our Milky Way, forget about the universe, but just here in our Milky Way, there has to be, it's a numbers game, hundreds of millions of advanced civilizations. Now, are they at the level of us? Right?
No,
we
some are under, some are over. Sure.
It's under or over. So some have figured out how to take one step and step across the Milky Way and travel instantly. Some are doing it other ways, but it's such a wide range of technology and types of ET that are aware of us. And so certainly if somebody is a million years ahead of us and they've been scanning for exoplanets and they see this beautiful blue gem, maybe with dinosaurs on it at that time, but they know that it's a planet that supports life and it has life on it. Yeah. So they're going to come and check us out. Sure.
And they're going to log it in. They're going to log us in.
Log it. They may only visit once because there are another trillion planets to go and take a look at. So, yeah, you're right. A quick login, a drive-by. Yeah, this is pretty nice.
Okay. I happen to think if we have disclosure, as I've said in your show many times, we're going to have open contact pretty shortly thereafter. And one of the things we may get in open contact is like, among other things, they may say, look, here's a little flash drive here, and on it is the location of all the other relatively advanced civilizations within 100 light years of your planet. Just let you know. Right? Just let you know.
See that. I can see that.
But there's another point technologically that you need to consider.
Sure.
The idea, I think the ETs prove that you can go from one planet to another in a way that makes sense. The other question is, can you communicate from one planet to another over large distances that makes sense? In other words, is the nature of communication such that you can actually communicate without having to stay within relativity limits, meaning light speed only? So 130 light years, there may be a way to get a message from our to that planet with the right technology in 20 minutes. And that hasn't been resolved yet.
Yeah, entanglement.
I don't know. I'm just saying that our physics is relatively new. Most of our physics is in the last 90 years. Okay. And we're really proud of it. It's like, wow, I got some great physicists and astrophysicists. Let me tell you, it's hard stuff. I can't even read it anymore. I read a physics thing. I can't understand the words. I can't understand the paragraphs. The physics I learned was 50 years ago. Right. But hey, we're very proud of it. Trust me. A lot of our physics is being taught to 6-year-olds in other civilizations, right? You get that in 6th grade, 3rd grade, whatever. So we need to constantly remind ourselves who we are and the arena that we're in and view it the bigger picture. They can get here from there. They can probably communicate at faster than light speed in some way. And their understanding of this galaxy far exceeds us. We would like to get that understanding now and not have to spend the next 1,000 years getting it. And that's okay, right? That's perfectly reasonable. We do this all the time. There's nothing wrong with them educating us and giving us a nice learning curve and bringing us up to speed on a whole lot of things. Right. There's nothing in the universe, some law that's, no, you got to learn it all by yourself. That's not the way we deal with our own people, our own kids, right? We take them to school so they can learn as quickly as possible. We don't send them out in the woods and say, figure it out in your own good time. And so the things we might learn post-open contact could just totally be unbelievable. And the number one barrier between us and open contact is disclosure. And the number one barrier between us and disclosure is the truth embargo. So you see how the dominoes fall. All right. Now, it's possible, I give it a very tiny possibility, that once we confirm to ourselves the ET presence, and it's all acknowledged and everybody's going, yay, the ETs will go, well, that's it. That's what we needed. You finally acknowledge us. Now you know we exist. Good. We're leaving now. We have other places to go. Good luck. All right. Don't use those nuclear weapons. Don't screw the planet up. Right. But we're gone. You've disclosed this. That's it. That could happen. In which case, I'm just going to put a bunch of rocks in my pocket and walk into the Pacific. I mean, that's pretty much what I'm going to do.
Yeah, right.
But I don't think that's going to happen, Jimmy.
Right. Well, John Ramirez and others, but John Ramirez earlier this week said that something big is gonna happen before the holiday season this year. Are you? Do you have that same mindset? Are you from that camp that something is big and imminent? It may not be the whole shebang, but that something is going to happen in 2023.
Look, he's a former FBI guy,
CIA,
and had all kinds of contacts. I mean, he has got people contact him. All kinds of things could be coming across his radar. No, I don't have any specific information that something is spectacular is going to happen. I'm just saying that if you read the tea leaves, right? If you just kind of step back and look at the picture, clearly something big is going to happen between now and the end of the year.
What's your gut tell you?
I've said it. Next comes an announcement from a major committee. We're going to have a hearing, under oath, military witnesses. Those hearings will be set up. There'll be advance notice. They'll be covered by every conceivable network that there is. They'll be broadcast worldwide. Hundreds of millions of people will watch it. Again, what we've had now is a couple of briefings. That's not the hearing I'm talking about. And it will be the most watched hearing and watch show of all time. And then the witnesses will start testifying, and our minds will be blown. Well, some people's minds will be blown. I'll be going, I knew that. But the point is that it will be amazing, and it will. I do not think the truth embargo can last 2 weeks of such hearings. I'm serious. It can't, because I know the kinds of witnesses are going to turn up. And know their backgrounds, and the idea that, I don't know, some debunkers on Twitter are going to come up and say, no, let me show you why all of these people have come together to commit a fraud on the world, right? They're all not really military at all. They're crisis actors or whatever the hell, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can do that. Forget about it. It's over. 2 weeks of those hearings, it's over. President makes the announcement. So that puts that announcement easily by midsummer.
Wow. Okay? Wow.
And again, I told you before, politically, it is the right thing to do. Look, nonpartisan, everybody wins, but you know who really wins? Joe Biden. Because while it will clearly be a non-political thing, right? It's like, say, oh, this is political. How dare you tell us the truth about the extraterrestrials? How democratic of you. No, it's not political. But Joe Biden will be the disclosure president. And he will go down in history and be talked about for thousands of years. All right. His administration will be considered one of the most important of all time. Luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But still.
Right.
And so you think that's going to help him in the 2024 election? Do you think it's going to help anybody who is deeply involved in these hearings, whatever party, Democrat or Republican, who are on camera taking this testimony, asking intelligent questions with hundreds of millions of people watching? You don't think their political careers are going to be enhanced? All right. So again, it's win, 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 win. Everybody wins until disclosure happens, and then the post-disclosure world starts, and then the awkwardness and the difficult part starts. Okay, when they have to kind of open up and start talking about the things they've hid, answer the tough questions about why, and also we'll get into the even more difficult areas of contact that will happen. You'll have hearings literally on contact, post-disclosure. Contactees will be coming in and testifying to Congress. Okay, that'll be a pretty big hearing too. And that's tough stuff, believe me. But it'll be a lot less difficult if it's in the post-disclosure world, and impossible in the pre-disclosure world. If you're a contactee and you're thinking you'd like to testify to Congress, you want to do it now, forget it. Post-disclosure, you should call your congressperson and say, hey, I'm a well-known contactee. I have extraordinary experiences, well-documented. I'd like to come in and testify to your committee. And they're going to be going, oh, please give your information to the secretary. We have a number of people we're talking at right now. That's what's coming. And contact is tough. If you're a politician, there's some tough questions there. And if you were still alive and part of the early days of the truth embargo, again, the question is simple: this: was the truth embargo worth leaving huge numbers of people in a position where there was no place to go except maybe Ciro and John Mack to talk about these things that had completely transformed their life and maybe made it miserable, and you denied the existence of what was happening? Talk about people that deny women that come forward with sexual abuse allegations. This is on a whole nother level. This is tough. The hearings and the process of disclosure will simply make it easy for us to be sympathetic and understanding with the government as it tries to get through those difficult times. I'm ready to be very forgiving and understanding, but I'm not a contactee. I do believe that contactees should get attention. Reparations, I don't. Validation like that will help a lot of them, but there's no way their life gets worse post-disclosure.
Here, Stephen Bassett. Thank you so much, my friend. Now, you're going to have some announcements coming up. We'll do that right here on Fade to Black. I look forward to all of that. Have a great time at Contact in the Desert. I will not be attending this year. I've got another event that I am doing during that weekend. But have a good time. Tell everybody I said hello.
And you've got a big event coming at the end of the year that's kind of dealing with the ancient stuff and everything. And I'm watching Ancient Aliens all the time, man. I'm getting really smart on that subject. So put me down on the possible speaker list or something, or a comp or whatever, because I want to be there.
Done. See,
thank you.
You've got
how easy it is.
See, you've got connections, man. You've got connections.
I'm wired.
Behave, my friend.
Please, brother. All righty.
The absolute very best. Stephen Bassett and Paradigm Research Group. The links are below. We've got them over on our social media. And again, Steve will be at Contact in the Desert, but he's also going to be at Stairway to the Stars in Las Vegas with us at the Luxor Hotel. With that, I'm going to get out of here. I've got a very, very, very busy day tomorrow. I've got to get up really early. I've got to go to work, then come back. I've got to do a show. And then tomorrow night, I've got Mick West right here on Fade to Black. So with that, I am going to get out of here. Thank you to Stephen Bassett. And what was I going to say? I had something else. Oh, I've got an announcement. That's right. I will go ahead and do all of that tomorrow. Fade to Black is produced by Renee Newman, Michelle Freed. Special thanks to, where my screen just went blank. Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Mick West, I want everybody to be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.